Welcome, I'm Nina Gryphon, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel. Today, we'll look at the astrology forecast for February 2024. First off, I wanted to say thank you to all of my patrons. I appreciate all of your support. If you would like to get access to astrological and magical content early and in many cases exclusively, please visit patreon.com/Nina Gryphon. At the highest tier, you can subscribe to my monthly magical elections document, which tells you how and when to make astrological talismans each month. In February, Jupiter will enter into orb with Uranus. Jupiter's moiety of orb is 9 degrees, and Jupiter in early February will get within that 9-degree reach of Uranus. Their mutual influence will intensify as Jupiter draws nearer until they conjoin fully in April. Now, the cycle of Jupiter and Uranus is associated with inventions and advances in science and technology, but also extreme behavior by humans. So we can assume that when it comes to behavior, this combination will bring about the lowest common denominator behavior in humanity. Now, February already will see numerous triggers of Jupiter and/or Uranus by faster planets. So you can see how that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is already being activated and brought into being well before it actually perfects in April. Overall, there are few huge aspects this month, but again, Jupiter and Uranus will overshadow a lot of what's going on. February 4th, Mercury will enter Aquarius. Mercury rules the airy triplicity in Aquarius by night, and it's a better fit for Mercury's energies than Capricorn. Now, he will be here less than 3 weeks as he's moving very quickly, racing to catch up with the Sun, seeking the Sun's conjunction. As Mercury passes through Aquarius, he will conjoin Pluto and then square Jupiter. It is an opportunity for Mercury to emphasize the values embodied by 0 degrees Aquarius, which is the degree of Jupiter and Saturn's conjunction back in 2020. That conjunction is going to be active for 20 years. Mercury passing through Aquarius is a moment for the values of humanism to emerge. It allows collective benefit for humanity and also the emergence of a discussion around human rights. February 5th, Mercury will conjoin Pluto at 0 Aquarius. Mercury now assumes the mantle of immense power. This is a very strong potential moment for Mercury when we can now use our hidden power to influence matters. On a collective level, people embodying Mercury are trying to gain power thanks to their role as intermediaries between different worlds or spheres of influence, whether these are people associated with business, education, or magic. If we choose to take on the role of Mercury now, we must recognize that Pluto makes us a vehicle for a greater force, perhaps the vehicle of great wealth, but also the underworld, since Pluto is the king of the underworld. And we cannot control this force so much as inhabit or even just let it possess us. To take a step back, as Pluto is near 0 degrees Aquarius much of this year, planetary aspects, especially conjunctions to Pluto, reanimate and energize that great conjunction of 2020, bringing its values and goals to the fore. It's like we are now channeling Pluto, and through him, the great conjunction repeatedly. February 8th, the Sun at 19 Aquarius will square Uranus in Taurus. The Sun will now activate the applying Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, so the mighty intensity of this disruptive energy now comes to light. We will be seeing more dramatic events emerge as we get closer to the actual Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in late April. February 9th, we have our new moon at 20 degrees Aquarius. This lunation maintains the status quo rather than developing new paths or ideas. Aquarius is a fixed sign, and so it generally tends to maintain existing patterns rather than starting new ones, contrary to some modern impressions of it. Its ruling planet is Saturn, and so it's the most conservative earthbound planet, which values whatever is old, even ancient, whatever is traditional and unchanging. Now, Saturn in this chart is in Pisces, making a close received sextile with Jupiter. These planets together symbolize the harmonious interaction between growth and contraction, between heaven and earth, and so on. Collectively, this lunation tends to be good for the economy and for the markets, providing a sense of stability and the feeling of growth and development. Now, we also must mention in this new moon, we have a Mars-Neptune sextile, which also tends to be good for the financial markets. Interestingly, the lunation itself closely squares Uranus in Taurus, so the following month will not be without some surprises, but the rest of the chart suggests that we now have the opportunity to quickly adapt to these changes rather than be completely thrown off our center. The key, I think, is that there will be potential shocks, but it seems that they're going to be rather well absorbed and adapted to rather than allowed to run the show and set the agenda. On a personal level, the next couple of weeks will give us the opportunity to stabilize existing projects and give them the nourishment needed to grow, as well as creating containers for future success. Conversely, it's not a good time to do and begin something completely new. And in fact, it would be best to instead examine how to adapt to changes and new developments in order to fold them into our existing goals, rather than create completely new goals at this time. February 10th, Mercury at Aquarius at 8 Aquarius will square Jupiter in Taurus. Mercury now activates Jupiter and Uranus, and perhaps we have a chance to see scientific advances. Whether this aspect will bring changes that we approve or detest, science and technology now bring to life something new, perhaps disruptive, that we must now work hard to integrate. It may take a while for us to understand and fully adapt to the changes that are now in place. This is the first aspect that Mercury will make to the conjunction this month. The Mercury-Uranus square will occur February 16th at 19 Aquarius, coloring really this entire week with a restless and even neurotic Jupiter-Uranus energy communicated by Mercury in an air sign. February 12th, Mars will enter Aquarius. Now, Mars loses a great deal of zodiacal dignity now because he has left his sign of exaltation, Capricorn, and enters a sign where he only has incidental minor dignity. And for all intents and purposes, Mars is peregrine or without major zodiacal strength here. To the extent that Mars symbolizes a collective force or a public person, this change of sign represents a loss of strength and prestige for Mars individuals, movements, political parties, etc. Mars instead will now be strongly impacted by the actions of its dispositor, Saturn, and aspects that Mars makes as he moves through Aquarius. Very shortly, Mars will conjoin Pluto and later square Jupiter, so Mars will be strongly influenced by these other planets' energies. On a personal level, it's probably best not to take on the mantle of Mars now because of his loss of dignity. February 12th, Saturn will have his evening set at 7 degrees Pisces. Saturn's influence is now going into hiding as he prepares for his conjunction with the Sun, when Saturn will be purged in the solar furnace. Saturn may be outwardly weak, but prepares for a glorious emergence out of the Sun's beams in March. Entering the Sun's rays is very weakening for a planet and forces it to work in the shadows in a hidden manner for a time. Projects now go underground and they continue to work unobserved beneath the surface. February 13th, Mars at 0 degrees Aquarius will conjoin Pluto. One of the most important aspects of this month, involving a superior planet and an outer planet, Mars conjoining Pluto will manifest as much on the personal level as on the collective. This will tell us something about the next couple of decades on a collective level, because this important conjunction occurs at the very point of the Great Conjunction of 2020, activating it. It's very likely going to impact the 2024 US elections and the next presidential term, the priorities of that period, and the meaning of that time when we look back at it historically. It's undoubtedly a combination that's violent, transformative, and brings out the underworld nature of Pluto, both in the sense of the realm of the dead and the contemporary meaning of the underworld as a place inhabited by criminals and those at the edges of society. We will see whether Mars channels Pluto for Mars's benefit and increased power, or whether Mars simply gets vaporized by Pluto. Either could happen. When you're invoking the Lord of the Underworld, you never know what outcome you're going to get. Places ruled by Aquarius, like Russia, could see major events impacting them at this time. When we had the Sun conjoining Pluto at this degree, Ukraine targeted oil plants in Russia to disrupt the Russian supply chain, just as an example. February 16th, Venus will be entering Aquarius. Now, Venus doesn't have much zodiacal dignity in Aquarius, and kind of like Mars, her journey through this sign this year will be heavily colored by her immediate conjunction with Pluto, about which we'll say more shortly. February 16th, Mercury will have his morning set at 18 degrees Aquarius. Mercury will become invisible now as he enters the sun's rays. Now, it is a time of restoration and cleansing for every planet when it goes behind the scenes to get a complete and possibly painful makeover in the solar furnace. During this period, until Mercury reemerges from the rays, it's a time to consider, plan, and develop your next move and your next chapter. This is a time for hibernation, at least outwardly. February 17th, Venus will conjoin Pluto at 0 Aquarius. Now, these are two uneasy bedfellows with an emphasis on bedfellows. We have the goddess of beauty and pleasure meeting with Pluto, the god of wealth, but most importantly, the king of the underworld, the lord of the shadow realm. Similarly to Mars's recent conjunction with Pluto, there seems to be a figure associated with Venus who tries to take on Pluto, and she may inhabit that role somehow, or she may completely fail. We will see exactly how this plays out, but we can see that the upcoming Venus-Mars-Pluto conjunction is assembling now. Venus will now enter a few days of besiegement between Pluto and Mars, so there could be particularly difficult news for issues like women's rights or specific women in the public eye. It's certainly not a good moment if you are Venusian yourself, if you are playing the role of Venus in some area of your life. Unless, of course, you are proactively channeling these very heavy, violent energies that are symbolized by Mars and Pluto. February 18th, the Sun will enter Pisces, so we are now entering Pisces season. And February 21st, we'll have Venus conjoining Mars at 6 degrees Aquarius. This is a combination that energizes both Venus and Mars, who in mythology are a goddess and god inexorably drawn to each other. If it's wrong, they don't want to be right. They symbolize the original components of the life force, uniting to create something new, energetic, and quite powerful. We do have Pluto in the mix here, so they're creating something very potent that can impact others at a subconscious or primary level. We can take advantage of this energy as creators or in other ways in our personal lives. Collectively, a new force emerges now that will grow and develop for quite some time. Being so close to 0 Aquarius, we are likely talking about what it means to be a person, how to exist in the world both as an individual and a member of a collective, and what our rights are. The last time that Pluto entered Aquarius was in the late 18th century, when much of Europe and certainly the United States were intensely searching for a new meaning of human rights through huge revolutionary forces that ultimately ended imperial rule even many decades, and in some cases a century or more later. So Venus and Mars uniting in this part of Aquarius with Pluto nearby will likely have enormous impacts that will probably outlast us all and will echo for many years going forward. February 22nd, Mercury enters Pisces. This is a major loss of dignity for Mercury, who is in his detriment and fall in Pisces. This is mystical and mute Mercury who brings about communication between the realms. Whereas in Aquarius he brought about inventions and new social ordering, in Pisces he goes simultaneously inward and outward, way beyond the human experience, into divine or mythical realms. It's an opportunity to be creative and pull those hard-to-reach threads in the fabric of the cosmos. February 24th, we have the full moon at 5 degrees Virgo. This lunation trines Jupiter, and will have Saturn and Mercury in Pisces opposing the moon and conjoining the sun. The presence of Saturn and Mercury on the lunar axis suggests 2 weeks filled with anxiety, setting boundaries, and reifying or making real the ideas generated via Mercury. This period is strongly linked with matters of the spirit, matters that are divine or even magical, thanks to the influence of Pisces. Mercury is the ruler of this lunation, and he governs business, the academic sphere, as well as the realm of the hermetic arts of astrology, divination, magic, and alchemy. This lunation may be a period when people who are dead, whether they died recently or long ago, occupy our mind on a personal or collective level. Personally, this is a chance to communicate and gain wisdom from that which is Saturnian, sources that are old, belonging to prior generations, and that are obscure or have been living in obscurity. February 24th, Venus at 10 degrees Aquarius will square Jupiter in Taurus. Venus will first trigger Jupiter in the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, followed by Mars doing so on February 27th, And then in early March, Venus and Mars will each square Uranus, completing the translation of light and remaking the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction for drastic and volatile results. Now, remember that Venus and Mars represent the process of constant creation, bringing about everything in the universe continually. Their aspects to Jupiter and Uranus, therefore, can be very fertile and potentially deliver new inventions. Whether these inventions are intended to help or harm humanity remains to be seen, but I would expect late February and early March to be very fruitful in matters of research and invention. So if you are currently working on any project requiring ingenuity, now is a unique time to think creatively and construct your masterpiece. February 28th, Mercury will conjoin Saturn at 9 Pisces. This aspect completes the applying Mercury-Saturn conjunction that was already present in the full moon a few days earlier. It's a profound and heavy combination, very inward-focused in the search for spiritual depth and truth. As I explained in the full moon portion earlier, these planets plumb the depths where something is trying to be born. It's not yet a verbal expression of the truths we are experiencing, as Pisces is a mute sign, but it's highly sensitive and mystical despite that. Now, since this is happening simultaneously with the Sun-Mercury conjunction, we will have a double synodic cycle happening on February 28th. We will have the cycle for Sun and Mercury and the one for Sun and Saturn. So 2 cycles are simultaneously finishing and new ones are immediately starting up. The presence of Saturn can make this a sad experience, focusing mainly on the fact of the ending cycle, whereas Mercury actually gives us an opportunity to view the future and give us a mystical glimpse of higher truths. This combination of Sun, Mercury, or Saturn will likely impact people who have this combination as a conjunction in their horoscope. This will especially, of course, impact people who have it in an immutable sign, like Pisces. Those folks could be seeing an ending to one chapter in their lives and a new era beginning. So on a personal level, the end of February could feel kind of bittersweet for them. February 29th, we have Mercury at 11 Pisces, sextile Jupiter in Taurus. This harmonious aspect brings the opportunity for successful negotiations and reaching mutually agreeable terms, as well as the chance to gain true wisdom through mystical or other non-material means of gaining insight. It can be financially helpful as well, so much depends on the level at which we choose to realize Mercury and Jupiter's energies. Thanks for watching. I'm Nina Gryphon, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel.